Well, here we go. The playoffs 2026.
I'm so excited for the fans there, Larry. It's a fun team to watch. When they got Dewar, Lizotte, and Achari as a line, that's as good an identity line as any line in the league. That's a playoff line. Yep. They cause me.
Welcome to a very special edition of Larry and the Big Man. That's the Big Man. Two-time Stanley Cup champion, Sportsnet hockey analyst. I'm Larry Richard from the Big K Morning Show at KDKA. And we thank One Team Media, Brian Hess, Mark Connington, Ryan Jurgen for putting these episodes together. And from Odyssey Pittsburgh, Michael Spatchipoli.
Also Dave Rourke, the Rourke Automotive Group. Thanks, Dave. And also Tom Grillish with Henderson Brothers. Thanks for being our title sponsors.
Expect the unexpected. But we are expecting the great Pierre McGuire to give us some future look into the NHL playoffs. Pierre, it's been a wild finish. And let's start with your Pittsburgh Penguins. How impressive have they been?
Really impressive, especially getting Crosby back, Malkin back, and everybody buying in. You know, the Florida Panthers are a shell of themselves. That's not the Pittsburgh Penguins' fault. That's just the way the schedule turned out. Florida's they're decimated by injuries. They're decimated by playing too many games over the last 3 years, including the Four Nations event and the Olympics this year. So they're out of bodies. That's not the Pittsburgh Penguins' fault. The Pittsburgh Penguins played very well this weekend. I'm really excited for them. They've obviously put themselves in a really good spot. And I think the biggest thing going into their game with New Jersey is just how determined they are to follow Dan Muse's system, which I think is phenomenal, Larry. I really do.
Hey, Pierre, before I'm going to come back to we'll get back to the Penguins in 1 second. I'm going to look again, as Larry and I were talking earlier in the week, and what's going on. Patrick Roy out in the island, and Pete DeBoer comes back into the NHL. And for me, this one, after watching the Pens play the Islanders last week, I kind of get this one. They were lifeless on Long Island. They needed something, and they still all have a chance to get this one final spot, because if they don't get the Metro, they might not be in.
There are four teams that are really crashing and burning at the same time. The Islanders, Detroit, Columbus, and Washington. Yep. I don't know if you watched Washington's 8-1 loss last night to the Rangers, I should say, on Sunday night to the Rangers. It was really bad. Columbus had a terrible loss weekend. Detroit, you can't lose at home the way they did to Minnesota on Sunday. And the Islanders, to your point, Jay, have not been very good. The Islanders had to do something. Now, Lou Lamoriello does not work directly for the team, but he is a consultant, a senior advisor to Matthew Darche, the general manager. He's got very good, very friendly ties with ownership on the island, led by Scott Malkin. Lou Lamoriello did this in 2000 when he brought in Larry Robinson to replace Robbie Ftorek. He did it not long after that to replace Claude Julien with the New Jersey Devils. So he's done that before. I had him on my podcast a week ago here on One Team Media, and he talked about John Tortorella going into Vegas. So he's seen this before. They were already probably planning on that on the island. And Pete DeBoer worked for Lou Lamoriello in New Jersey. People forget that. They went to the Stanley Cup final together as a owner or a manager and a coach in 2013. They lost to LA. But this has happened before in the NHL. I'm not surprised. I think the biggest thing, the Islanders didn't want to lose Pete DeBoer in the offseason, because he would have been the top of the list for all coaches that are out there that are unemployed. And I think they didn't want to lose him to another team.
Yeah, and you just had a great podcast, your own, with Lou Lamoriello. What a great hockey mind. So if he's in the mix, I'd say that is a really good sign for the team.
I would agree with you. And again, he knows Pete as well or better than any management person still left working in the National Hockey League. I was really surprised Pete DeBoer didn't land in Los Angeles. And their coach, DJ Smith, who replaced Jim Hiller, is a good friend of mine. We worked together in Ottawa. I thought that DJ would stay as an assistant and Pete would go in there, but maybe Pete didn't want to go, or maybe they just didn't talk to him. I thought Pete would have had a legitimate chance at Columbus when they brought in Rick Bowness to replace Dean Evison. Didn't work out that way. Most people before the season started, Larry and Jay, thought that Patrick Roy would be the first coach fired this NHL season. He was the third coach fired. Dean Evison was first, Jim Hiller was second, and obviously third. And now you got Cassidy out too, so it's actually more than that. Cassidy got bumped out in Vegas for John Tortorella. So it's three coaches, and Roy ends up being the fourth.
You know, Pierre, when I think about DeBoer going there, and I mentioned this, we touched briefly on this. but Bo Horvat was with them, and he understands what he's like when he's with them in Team Canada, right? So DeBoer was an assistant on that staff for Team Canada. I think that's a great. I can just see this one. A lot of times we'll sit there and go, oh, it's just the same guys over and over again. This one truly, though, does make sense to me. It's just this one, they have a fighting chance when you have a guy that's going to get behind the bench, and I expect to see. We always know the bump you get in the NHL anyway when a coach is fired and a new guy comes in. But this one is going to be, you got 4 games, and they can make something happen, and all their schedules are tough down this little bit. I do find it to be I think you get your leader, your captain, have him be, under control and understand what Peter DeBoer is about.
What a smart point by Jay, Larry. I got to tell you right now. So they got 4 games left.
Yeah.
They got Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, and Carolina all at home. So that coach gets a chance to implement his philosophies and try to get them going, especially defensively. He'll find out more about his team. Horvat is a tremendous ally because they did work together, obviously, with Team Canada. And I'm looking at that going, Pete will have a chance to implement his practice plan. Pete will have a chance to find out what guys can do and can't do. And so if he doesn't make the playoffs this year, which I do believe they're going to be in tight, they can't lose any of these games coming up. Because Ottawa's really starting to play, and that's a problem for them. But I can just say this. No matter what, Pete's got 4 years left after this with the Islanders. He signed a 4-year deal. He's going to know that team. They won't make any mistakes this offseason. I'll tell you that right now. I didn't like the Islanders team going into the season. I thought they could have done some more creative things. It's a new management group. They didn't do as much as I thought they would. Now they're starting to get proactive.
I'm curious, Jay, as a former player, Pierre, coach, the mindset of the team when a coaching change comes that late, they obviously know that each of their jobs are on the bubble too, so there's additional incentive to do the best that they can. Interesting how players might handle that.
You're right. So I'm looking at what's gone on in Vegas so far with Tortorella going in there. Clearly there was a disconnect with Bruce Cassidy because these guys look like they're running footloose and fancy free. They look like a completely different team. John's coached 3 games there, 1 against Vancouver, not very good, one against Calgary, not very good, and obviously 1 against Edmonton that went to the last 2 final. And I think John's getting comfortable with that team, and they're getting comfortable with him. I think the Islanders one's going to be interesting to watch because I don't think the team on paper is as good as what they were expecting it to be. I didn't like their team on paper, but they were really pumping that team hard in the offseason. And for whatever reason, I think they overrated some of their players. New management team, a lot of enthusiasm. Now I think they realize we got work to do.
So, Pierre, do you think, when I look at being Patrick Roy, being a goaltender, what that's all about, Sorokin, when we watched the Pens in there just last week, really not on top of his game. And he didn't have any help either, by the way. But you don't usually get to him that way. And the Pens have now done this multiple times. But do you think – I think it looked like he almost lost Sorokin as well. I mean, to me, and I'm not in that locker room. They might have been tight for all I know. But somehow in that game, there was a major disconnect between, I thought, the way Sorokin looked and the Patrick Roy, as the head coach.
Yeah, I'm not in their room either. I do have friends that are around that team, pretty close around that team.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything negative about Patrick and Sorokin's relationship.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean there isn't a problem.
Yeah.
But I would agree with you. Sorokin didn't look the way he's used to looking.
No.
And Patrick was saying stuff, Jay, and he's an emotional guy, but he was saying stuff that I was like, I'm not sure the players are believing him on this. Well, we can be better. We weren't that bad. They were really bad in some of those losses down the stretch. And I don't know if the players just said, you know what, he's just trying to cover up or he's trying to make nice. I don't know. Something happened there. Lou Lamoriello sniffed it out. I think Matthew Darche sniffed it out. Ownership's on the hook. Believe me, this takes big courage by their owners financially. They owe Patrick Roy 2 more years after this, and they signed DeBoer for 4. And it's not like for $100,000. It's for millions of dollars. So the owners there took a big gamble on this one. They're on the hook for this.
I still feel, and that's just me, I'm a middle child, Pierre. I'm always trying to make the peace. I feel for someone like Patrick Roy, who's a Hall of Famer and been so successful as a player to transition into coaching. And, it reminds me in baseball, when some of the most famous players, same thing in any sport, although it's rare in football that a player becomes a head coach for some reason, when they lose their jobs, I still feel for them because they've got a lot of pride in the game that they've played.
I never like to see anybody get fired. There are a lot of guys that have been fired that I really feel bad for as coaches, but I can't stand them as people. I mean that sincerely, but I still feel bad for them. I do. Like, there's a lot of collateral damage when people get fired in pro sports. It's changing schools if you have a family. It's moving out of a community that you really felt comfortable in. Like, if you want to keep working, nobody's going to feel sorry for you. It's not a pity party, but having been through it, I know how painful it is, and it stinks. But it also happens. You know what you signed up for when you did it. I feel bad for Patty because I know he cared. He worked his butt off. I'll tell you guys a quick story. Colorado was his first head coaching job in the NHL. I remember doing a Colorado-Pittsburgh game in Pittsburgh. I was at the rink around 7:30 in the morning, and I hear noise down the hallway from where I usually get a coffee, Jay Raid and Mario's suite at Suite 66.
Yeah.
And I hear this noise down the hall, so I go down the hall. And there's Patty in the video room by himself breaking down tape at 7:30 in the morning. So he was fully engaged, and he really cared about being good. And that's when Colorado wasn't very good, and they had Nathan McKinnon, first overall pick, and they were trying to cultivate him, but the team stunk, and he was just trying to squeeze some wins out of that team. So he really cared. He was fully engaged, and I don't like to see anybody get fired, but it's a reality of the business.
Yeah, he was way more vocal early on in his coaching career, right, Pierre? I mean, you could hear him. We could hear him up top in the building. Yeah, it was the passion that he had. Yeah, I get that. I'm going to go back on the Allen thing for 1 second. He talked about Matthew Schaefer and the record. What a phenomenal young talent, and that he broke Dennis Potvin's record. And people are all relating. Well, you got somebody like Potvin. I go, yeah, but you don't have Trottier, you don't have Bossy, right? You don't have Clark Gillies and Nystrom. Go down the list. I mean, just because
Stephon Pearson.
Yeah, I mean, so it's to your point. Yeah, it's like your point, Pierre. Like, hey, you've got a guy, but they don't have enough around the young talent. The kid's phenomenal, and it's. I think it's, as we're summing it all up, it's probably a really good time to make this move, and they gotta find a way to support youth like that young defenseman in a way that he's not the only guy, in a sense.
No, I love what you just said. Think about how much the Penguins changed when Brian Trottier came in. Think about how much it changed when Ronnie Francis was there. Think how much it changed when Alfie got there, Larry Murphy, Gordy Roberts, all those guys. So you get these older players in, Larry, it makes a difference. It really does. And Billy Guerin helped change the Penguins when he came in. Jay, that. You were covering the team. I mean, it really changed a lot of things. He had won the Cup in Jersey. He gave Sid some direction. He really helped Gino. Like, he made a difference. Those guys make a difference. They really do.
Yeah, and look at Billy Guerin, the guys that a lot of talent came to Pittsburgh, and a lot of talent has a great influence around the league out of Pittsburgh, and I think fans here take great pride in that. And let's be honest, if you don't make the playoffs for 3 seasons and you haven't won a round in, 6 or 7, Jay?
Yeah.
This is the most exciting and maybe since the last time they won a cup.
I'm so excited for the fans there, Larry. It's a fun team to watch. Ben Kindle's done some good things. I hope he's not really seriously hurt. Jay, you would know that better than I, but he's an important player for the team. And I just look at the development of all their players. I'm looking at Ryan Shea. Parker Wotherspoon. Everybody in the NHL was high-fiving yesterday when he got involved with Matthew Tkachuk. People like that around the league. Tkachuk's he's either your favorite or he's not your favorite, and a lot of people are probably pretty happy with that. There's a lot to like about this Pittsburgh team, and it starts behind the bench. And I got to give Kyle Dubas some credit, a lot of credit. He had a vision for how he wanted his team to play. He went out and hired a coach that could see his vision through, and he brought in players to help the coach see his vision. So you put it all together, it's a pretty good machine right now in Pittsburgh.
You know what, Pierre? What I really like about Kyle Dubas too. Some of his comments, because the pressure comes about the guys that have come here from Mantha, Brazeau, the likes, everybody. How they performed, and then immediately the press and it goes, yeah, okay, are you going to re-sign them and things like that? Well, it's so premature, but that's the way it goes in the press, right, Pierre? We all understand that. But Kyle Dubas' response was like, yeah, I want to see what he does over the next couple months, right? It's more like it. We all know, like they're almost all on prove-it deals in a sense, right, Pierre? Like these guys have come in here and they have done that. They've been, they've been very good. But you can't lose focus on what's still ahead of you, and then you can talk contract after that. The press always wants to bring that up a little too early and then let it play itself out and then see where it all goes from there.
I love that take, Larry. Jay just nailed it. Everybody wants to be rewarded right away. The problem is it's not that easy as a general manager, especially in the salary cap era, especially with a team that hasn't made the playoffs in the last 3 years, as you guys have both talked about. So the truth is that it's a hard business. Everybody wants to have job security. I understand that. And I've experienced both. I've had tremendous job security and I've also had some where I had no job security. So they're two different feelings. I get it. But as a player, you got to understand that every day is another opportunity to try out. And unless you're a certain brand of player, that's just how your life's going to be. Jay lived that. How many years did you have to live like that, Jay?
Yeah, it was year to year. Maybe once you got a 2-1, and on that it's 1-1s, right, Pierre? And it's right, Pierre. It's a tough part of it. Like, you remember, even Pierre, you win a cup and you go in to take the team picture and guys are finding out who was exposed. You remember those days, right?
Yeah, we lost Randy Gillen. I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
He was an important part of our team, 100%. The Tampa and Ottawa were coming in the league, and we lost guys.
Yep.
Absolutely. After the 91 Cup. I'll never forget that.
And, I'll go back on one thing real quick. When I did say that about players like that who are being brought up because they have come in here and done such an outstanding job to make this team, and as I've said, in my opinion, one of the top in the league, truly. There's the elite and there's a next wave. The Penguins are in that next wave because of the guys that they brought in, and I expect them, and I think we're gonna see the same kind of effort and hopefully the result that they move on and then truly earn something after that. But they have been absolutely outstanding to see 4 lines roll the way they are, Pierre. I'm not sure there's many teams. I don't think there's many teams out there can put out their 4. They can be top heavy. The Penguins 1, 2, 3, 4 are so solid that they make something happen every shift that makes them so dangerous.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. And it all starts down the middle. I couldn't agree. And they've got roster flexibility. They got guys playing on the wing that can also play center.
Yep.
So you got a whack of depth down the middle. Achari plays wing, but he's a natural center. Raquel plays wing, but he can play center. You go down the line. Tommy Novak can play wing. He can play center. Malkin can play center. He can play wing. Like, they've got major roster flexibility, which is tremendous. When are they getting that Blake Lizotte back?
I think it's right through the end. I think he's projected to be out through the rest of the season. I know.
And there's another guy, though, Larry. He's an important guy. Jay knows that better than anybody. When they got Dewar, Lizotte, and Achari as a line, that's as good an identity line as any line in the league. That's a playoff line.
Yep.
They cause, man.
Well, here we go. The playoffs, 2026, the great Pierre McGuire. Always appreciate your insight. Check out Pierre's Inside the Game podcast right here with One Team Media. Thanks, Pierre.
Thank you, Pierre.
Wait till you hear this week's Caroline Harvey, the golden girl from the Olympics. She is stellar. Unbelievable life lessons from Caroline Harvey. She is the most addicted hockey person I know. She is so into the sport. It's
and
crazy.
Coming from you, that's saying something. All right, Pierre, take care.
All right, Pierre.
Thanks a lot, man. Love being with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pierre McGuire, and we thank you for checking out our podcast. Want to also thank One Team Media, Brian Hess, Ryan Jorgen, and Mark Connington, who produced these episodes, and from Odyssey Pittsburgh, Michael Spatchapoli.
Yeah, they're great guys. It's great to have them apart. They make it so easy for us, right, Larry? So if I look also, Dave Rourke, lifetime state inspections, lifetime oil change, lifetime engine warranty, Rourke Automotive. They're such a great help and been a title sponsor for us. And Tom Grillish at Henderson Brothers, another title sponsor. Both of them, we can't thank them enough, but you got a little more about Tom.
Yeah, when it comes to protecting your business, your people, your future, it's Henderson Brothers. Thank them for their partnership with us. And we thank you. Follow us on social media. Next up, Mike Eruzione. What a year he's had after scoring the winning goal in 1980, winning the gold with the American team. He got hoisted by the USA Olympic gold medal team.
He's awesome.
And, great conversation, and also get ready for the NHL playoffs. So that's this edition of Larry and the Big Man, and that's a wrap.